Good morning. This is Ray. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, just checking.
Hi, Ray. We can hear you. And so far, it looks like we have Member Rice and Member Humphrey on.
Okay.
Good morning.
Morning, Curtis.
How are you, Ray?
Doing good. Thank you.
Good.
Sharman, are we waiting for anyone else?
Um, I'm not sure. We have yourself, Member Sneeden, Humphrey, and Rice. Vera, did we hear from anyone else?
Member Zimmer did not respond to the invite, so we're not sure if he's coming. I believe you do have a quorum, though.
Yes. 18 hours after. So.
All right. With that said, I would like to call to order the Kansas Post-Secondary Technical Education Authority Budget and Finance Committee meeting to order Thursday, May 16th, 2024. And first thing is to certainly welcome TA members and others that are joining us on the Zoom meeting. And we have minutes from our March 14th, 2024 meeting.
I would move to approve those, Mr. Chair.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second, Dave Rice.
Are there any objections? If not, minutes are approved. We're going to move on to our discussion agenda. First item is to act on the FY25 Kansas Nursing Initiative Grant Awards, and we'll turn our attention to Associate Director Vera Brown.
Good morning. This beautiful and cloudy day in Topeka, I am happy to present the FY25 Kansas Nursing Initiative Grant Awards. In fiscal year 2025, the Kansas legislature appropriated approximately $3.7 million to support nursing programs around the state. And institutions submitted applications to support nursing faculty, purchase supplies, and focus on student success. Just as a reminder, in order to be eligible for these funds, first and foremost, the programs have to be approved by the Kansas Board of Nursing and nationally accredited. They must have a 3-year average NCLEX first-time passing scores at or above 3-year national average. And they have to have a documented articulation to a higher level nursing program. In an effort to assist programs that may have NCLEX scores that are increasing but are too low compared to the 3-year national average, or if they're in the process of accreditation, there's a set aside that allows us to award grants on a yearly basis to support those programs as well. We had a great response to proposals, to request of proposals this year. We had 33 applications. That is the most I've seen in my tenure at the board. And 20 of them came from 2-year institutions and 13 from 4-year institutions. And for this particular grant, private post-secondary is also eligible to apply. 3 applied for a set-aside to increase NCLEX scores, and Salina Area Technical College and WSU Tech are working on their accreditation. Overall, out of $3.7 million for fiscal year 25 for the requests that were allowable, $2,441,662 were awarded. And the remaining funds will assist us with putting on a nurse educator professional development for all Kansas nursing faculty, and also to provide a formula-based allocation, which will be presented in a few minutes. In your issue paper, you will find the breakdown of requests and what was awarded. There's a summary provided there, but notably a lot of interest in virtual reality type of simulation, a lot of support for students through Assessment Technologies Institute or ATI. Lots of professional development. It sounds like a lot of institutions use this grant to enhance the knowledge and skills of their faculty. And also we see that the number of students in the programs is increasing, so there's more faculty needed. So also we see a lot of requests for faculty salary for new positions. At this time, I would stand for any questions, and the recommendation of the review committee, which consists of the academic affairs staff, workforce development staff, and the staff from Kansas Board of Nursing, is to present it to you for your discussion and approval.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments regarding the information submitted? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve and to put on the consent agenda for our next meeting on the 30th.
I'll make that motion, Dave Rice.
Okay, Dave, is there a second?
Curtis seconds.
Curtis? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, motion passed. Okay, Vera, let's continue.
Thank you.
Next item.
Thank you. So as you heard a minute ago, there is a leftover funds from the 3.7 million of about $1.3 million for the fiscal year 2025 for nursing programs. And as you remember, it has to be spent on faculty, supplies, or student success. So to distribute this allocation based on the Board of Nursing academic year 21-22, we looked at annual admissions approved by the board and allocated $500 per student for all programs that applied for the fiscal year 2025 funding. In the table, you will see the breakdown of how these calculations aligned. And in the end, we would have awarded $1.3 million, 28,500. The board staff submits the proposed allocations to the Budget and Finance Committee for discussion and approval, and I'll stand for any questions.
Okay, any questions? Comments? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve and put on the consent agenda.
I'm sorry, I guess I want to make sure I'm keeping up with you on the math. We had an amount left over and you allocated 500 per student and that consumed the entire amount, or is that a coincidence, or how did we land on the sweet spot there?
So we received information from the Kansas Board of Nursing on how many seats were approved in 21-22. We took the amount that was left, and it was approximately $500 per student that was left in the system. So that's how we calculated that. There's a small set aside for the Nursing Educator Conference. So the remainder, whatever is left, is going to be allocated towards that. And then in the end, if we have any leftover funds in excess of $100, we have permission from the legislature to use it in next year's allocation.
Okay, I would move to approve.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we have a second? Did I miss it? Do we have a second?
Yeah,
I'll second that, Ray.
Dave
I'm
Rice.
sorry.
Okay. I think I got that being David. All right, any other questions or comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, Vera.
Thank you. May I just clarify, we are putting this on the consent agenda as well for the
That's
TEA?
correct.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on our agenda. Next item is to receive information and act on the FY 2025 distributions. Vice President Elaine Frisbee.
Good morning, committee.
Good morning.
The next set of items are here for your information about funding for the two-year schools in the coming fiscal year. There were provisos applied to the appropriations that would limit our ability to make any changes for what the individual schools would receive. So let's start with tiered technical state aid. On the bottom of that page is the beginning of a table that compares the fiscal year amounts for 25 to the prior year 24 amounts. You can see the increases and reductions relative to the prior year. In sum total, we're going to be about 62.5 million, or about 3.6 million less. This is the result of applying the entirety of the cost model calculations and then comparing the three most recent fiscal years and averaging those three amounts. And that's the result, is a 62.5 million. Those are the figures that were presented at the TEA meeting, I believe at the very end of January, earlier this year. So those are the amounts for tiered funding. And of course, the state does provide funding to the two-year colleges for their non-tiered courses, the non-technical courses, in the same fashion, using the cost model calculations for the most recent year on enrollments, and then using the three-year average, we come up with the amount of 89.2 million in total across the system, which is 6.2 million less than the prior year. And so the amounts are laid out as presented earlier. There is also an appropriation for all of the public two-year colleges for cybersecurity improvements. Of course, as we learn more and more about hospitals and cities and our judicial court system being attacked, important to fortify our networks. So each one of the two-year colleges will receive $250,000 to make improvements to their campus networks. That total then is 6.5 million. For the second year, there is funding in the amount of 14.3 million for fiscal year 2025 for the two-year colleges on their apprenticeships and business and industry agreements with their local communities. So in the proviso, each institution was assigned an amount. Some are a little bit higher, some are a little bit lower, but in sum total, again, the amount is exactly the same at 14.3 million, and you can see in the table all of the amounts that are identified. So that'll be the amounts that will go out for the two-year schools. And then there is also an amount of 17.5 million appropriated, again, with the amounts designated in the bill for each one of the colleges. A total 17.5 million, and would be used by the colleges to develop and implement initiatives to work on student success. So perhaps some advising or student information systems, unclear how that will be used by each of the colleges. And then lastly, the amounts that were specified by proviso is a $5 million appropriation for those colleges that had never merged or unified with a vocational technical school back in the day. So according to statute, certain colleges are eligible for CTE Cap Outlay. That's been a long-standing appropriation, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. These are the colleges that are not eligible in statute for that stream of funding. So there was $5 million, again, appropriated. And the division, according to the $5 million, is that it must be divided according to your tiered credit hours, which are converted to FTE students. So even though a school might increase on their total credit hours for tiered courses, another school might increase at a greater rate. And so your amount might still be a little bit less. And you can see the adjustments there in the table to the prior year. Of course, that's according to your tiered enrollments. I don't know if there are any questions about those amounts.
Okay, any questions up to this point?
When were they determined?
Pardon me?
Sorry, Rita?
No.
No? Okay.
Okay, we'll move on.
All right. We do have two items in the budget bill, Senate Bill 28, which were appropriated that do not have specific amounts where it must be calculated a certain way. The first one is operating grants to the technical colleges. Again, this is the second year of this funding, and ignore the title there in that table. We'll correct that for the TEA meeting. But the first amount is 10.5 million for 2025. And the technical colleges have requested that the amount be equally divided. So 1.5 million to each. So the same as in 2024. And then the last item we have to talk about this morning is the CTE Cap Outlay distribution. And this table does also spread across 2 pages. So going all the way back to 2011, Cap Outlay aid is distributed to the technical colleges and 9 of the community colleges that had merged with the technical school, of course, and also WIT as being similar to a technical college. So the funding for this year is the same. It is 2 appropriations, some of which comes from the state general fund, some of which comes from the state's lottery proceeds, which is the Economic Development Initiatives Fund. It's just about 7.4 million, which is, I think, maybe the 3rd or 4th year in a row it's been that amount. I'm not recalling exactly. One benefit we were able to get last year, we had 2 different provisos on the 2 appropriations. So we were able to get that unified this year to make it a lot easier for tracking of match and for tracking the expenses. So we're happy to have that. The language in the bill does require a dollar for dollar match. That can come from the college, from private donations. It can be a cash match, or it can be for equipment. We have been giving guidance to the schools that they are allowed to carry this over for a set time frame. So you don't have to use it in the very year that you receive this funding. So if you want to designate this funding and build up some funds to do a larger project, you can certainly do that. So prior to last year and the year before, from 2005 through fiscal year 2022, there was a very set process for how these funds were divided. There was $100,000 provided to each of the colleges, and then the balance was adjusted according to your enrollment production. The provisos for the 2 years in between changed that. Because there isn't such a proviso this year, staff just recommended going back to the original distribution, the way it had been done from 2005 to 2022. And those are the amounts that you see there in the table. Because this is tied to enrollment production, you can see there many of the schools have seen enrollment reductions. So we do have many reductions here, but a few schools, notably Johnson County and WSU Tech, are seeing some, and Hutchinson are seeing some sizable increases there. So again, this is $100,000 base to everyone, and then the balance of the funding distributed according to enrollments. Don't know if there are any questions about that.
I have a question, Elaine, backing up a little bit.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, I'm not keeping up with you, but under the operating grants to the technical colleges,
Yes.
the verbiage says that the bill appropriates it for community colleges that do not have technical programs. And yet everything.
That text needs to be corrected.
Okay, good.
We'll
Okay.
perfect that. Thank you for
Thank
pointing
you.
that out.
Okay. Well,
No,
I
that's
was
good.
feeling really dumb there. Okay, cool.
No, no,
Gotcha.
no. You're right on. Thank you for that.
Okay.
Hey, that's a little assist there. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, questions regarding the distribution of capital outlay?
Ray, this is Jim. Will you take a question from me?
Go ahead.
Yesterday, Seth and I and Heather and Steve discussed this, and we are requesting that you not approve this particular section of the appropriation yet. We're requesting on behalf of both the technical and community colleges to see what the allocation would have been using the previous year's model. Because you can see from this, the most everybody's losing money, and so both sides were requesting to see if the options used the last year or the year before, how that might have changed it before a recommendation is made.
So are you suggesting that we start with a different base?
We're requesting that the K-Board staff provide us a couple options of how it would have been calculated using last year with the proviso, just to see what the difference would have been.
Okay.
So one other option, if I'm understanding, would be to calculate it as it was done last year.
Yes.
Okay.
And that would, be presented at our full TEA meeting?
Right. That would give both sectors a chance to look at it, and we would share our recommendation back to the TEA at that time, if that is okay with everybody.
Okay. Any comments from our TA members?
This is Dave. I'd be okay with that.
Curtis?
Yes, sir. I think that sounds okay.
Okay. Is Keith on?
Yeah, I'm here. That sounds okay to me too, Ray.
Okay, I agree as well.
Thank you.
Okay, do we all understand just what they are requesting? We would, Elaine, tell us
Yes.
what that would be.
Yes, we can provide that for the TEA meeting.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Continue.
And the last item we have there at the bottom for technology grants, this is a long-standing appropriation. We have a rather nominal amount of under $400,000. This goes to technology, community colleges and Washburn University. The amounts there, we've just held them exactly the same. This does require a 50% local match. Helps keep our technology equipment up to date.
Right.
Anything else?
That's all I have today, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, are we needing to take action on this?
I believe the tradition has been that the Budget and Finance Committee makes recommendations on these amounts. So the first items that we spoke about through the $5 million for capital outlay to the other colleges, I would think would be on consent if I'm, unless you'd like to go over them with the full TEA as just an informational item.
Okay, do I have a motion to put this on the consent agenda that does not include our capital outlay? Is that correct?
The last three items, the operating grants for technical colleges, the CTE Cap outlay that we just ran through, and the technology grants could be on discussion, I think, as an action item for the TEA.
Okay,
So, Mr. Chair, I think if I'm reading this correctly, those first items under what's the heading? It's basically 2CA were more or less dictated by the legislation. So I'm not sure there'd be any action required either by the committee or even on a consent agenda. That almost sounds like a informational report. On the other hand, the items under 2CB, I would move that this committee approve them to be moved to the consent agenda. How do you say it?
You mean discussion?
any
Well, I get, yeah, sure. Which either way, I'm not sure what to be discussed by the full TEA. That would be my motion, that we approve to move this forward for discussion.
the entirety of the presentation?
Just the ones at the bottom under
Okay.
2CB.
Okay,
I think those are the only ones that require action as far as I can tell.
okay.
That's right.
And Dave, did you provide a second?
Yeah, but I want to make sure Jim's request, we're still going to be able to take a look at that at the meeting.
That's correct.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So if that's on discussion, then there will be
Yeah.
an array of options.
Okay, then yeah, I'll provide a second.
Okay. Any remaining questions, comments? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
All right.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay. Did you get it, Elaine?
I did, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right. We're gonna move on. And Rita, you're up for our authority goals.
Okay, again, coming back with authority goals, trying to give us an idea of task or information that the board is going to want to have provided to them so that they can perform their various duties. As I was going through some of the history, went back and found the last mission statement that the TEA had adopted, and that was to drive the advancement of a robust technical education system to meet the needs of Kansas business and industry. And the vision focused on being a premier technical education provider and developing a highly prepared Kansas workforce. Keeping that in mind, then to that end, the members began establishing goals, and they've kind of clustered under three various categories. One was aligning the technical education offerings within the systems and ensuring they were in line with business and industry needs. The second was enhancing system participation, trying to increase the number of people participating in technical education, and of course, trying to develop more people into the workforce. And again, reviewing policy and of course, funding career and tech ed. And that charge was met with the development of the funding model. It's actually the instructional funding model. And the third area was evaluating and measuring the system effectiveness. And as we look through the goals that were established last year, many of those fit into one of those categories and were consequently then subsequently subdivided it as charges to the various committees. So the goals that were provided last year or that were established last year are presented in the paper. And then toward the bottom, the two of those goals that were assigned to this particular committee were to review the cost model and to give TEA members and other a better understanding of how it works and to conduct extraordinary cost reviews. After some discussions that we've had recently and throughout, some additional topics for potential inclusion were to explore the opportunities to diversify funding sources for adult education. Really haven't done a lot in the past with looking at funding for adult education. Most of that has been met through the federal funding. And of course, there is a required state match or a state contribution in order for us to receive that federal funding. But as the needs for expanding the services at our adult education centers have grown, and the need for more teachers and also the need to expand the workforce. I mean, this is a good source of potential workforce participation once they get their GED or their adult or their higher ed or their high school equivalency, working to partner with the colleges to ensure that they're getting skills so that they are, when they finish, they're ready to participate in the workforce. There's also some other initiatives in the adult ed sector that could potentially add to workforce participation, but there's no funding for them. So I think maybe looking at how those are funded and just taking a look at them might be something that this group would like to look at over the next year. One of the other, and another item was, of course, from our recent discussion, is trying to identify best practices in reducing or eliminating actual fees charged to high school students participating in these programs, and to ensure the actual costs and maybe potential subsequent subsidies are adequately communicated. I know when the TEA approved the Excel and CTE fees for this coming year, part of that motion was to continue that discussion. And so that would be an attempt to do that. And another would be to potentially explore methods to ensure that the data we're using to calculate that instructional cost model actually represents actual cost. So maybe delving into where all that information comes, exploring where it comes from, and is it the most accurate? And if it isn't, what can we do to get it more accurate? Those would be some additional topics that could potentially be added if this group would like to take those on. And I'm just presenting these at this particular point because if you agree that those might be added so that when we come together on the 30th, they would be included in that paper. That is why this is being discussed here.
Good. Comments from our TA committee members?
I like all three bullet points. And I think the last two, refer to the cost model. And I think that's an ongoing discussion that we need to continue to have. So I'm happy with all three of those.
Okay. Anyone else?
Okay. Okay, thank you. I will include them in the paper that goes forward.
All right. Thank you, Rita. Any other matters need to come to our attention this morning? If not, just a reminder, our next committee meeting is actually Thursday, August 15th, 2024. So get a little break. Some call it vacation. I don't know, but anyway, just a reminder. And then also a reminder of our full TEA meeting on the May 30th in Topeka. It'll be the last meeting of this session. So hopefully everyone has that on their schedule and can attend in person on the May 30th. So, all right, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, any objections? All right, thank you to all, and we are adjourned.